Sam Klemke here on February 4th, 2008. I was very saddened to hear today that Gus Arriola, the famed creator of Gordo, the comic strip that ran for 44 years, died at the age of 90. He lived a very full, long life in Carmel, California. He'd been retired since 1985, but he had quite a long run. 44 years for a mainstream comic strip artist is quite a run. Many people don't remember him. He was only in about 300 newspapers at his prime, but he was critically acclaimed as one of the most unique, original, and intellectual comic strip artists of his time. He didn't put out too many books, but in the last few years he put out this one. I can relate to this image. I recommend them highly. They're very entertaining, interesting, articulate, perceptive. He was a great writer and an excellent illustrator. I was very pleased and honored to have known Gus in the last 10 years of his life and considered him a friend. Got together with him about 5 times in his home in Carmel with his wife Frances, and he has one of my books and even gave me a nice little review on my website. This kind of thing touches you deeply when you get to know someone late in life like this. I was fortunate enough to do an interview with Gus back in the year 2000 at his home in Carmel, and we covered a lot of topics about cartooning, and it was just really heartwarming to meet this hero of mine since childhood. And he was very open, very generous, and very articulate. And he was 83 at the time. This is a little snippet of my interview with Gus Arriola back in the year 2000. Well, my parents, like I was telling you, both just love the wit of it and how clever it is.
Well, I don't know how to explain to you what wit is or where it comes from.
This is kind of cosmic in a way. This one by Celeste Chol. You know, I mean, but you need a little bit of basic education to appreciate it, I think. And
well, I read a lot. I used to read a lot and pick up on things, and I also admired the language of Crazy Cat, Harriman, George Harriman.
Right.
The way he phrased things, and he created a language, and I used to admire his use of words. And I tried to emulate him in putting the words poetically together.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty obvious that you have a wide knowledge and that you have a very strong curiosity about the world.
Oh, yes,
not just in terms of regionalism, but the whole planet.
Well, that's it. Well, I would read something and I think this would make a good Sunday page, not only art-wise but subject-wise.
Like Mamacita and Gordo, I always felt there was almost a little romantic tension between them.
Well, there was, because she came to take care of him when Pepito left to go to college. He needed a housekeeper, so he got this woman called Tewana Mama. Well, there was a little romantic thing going between them, but Gordo wanted younger girls always, and she acted like a mom. She wouldn't let him go on a date unless his fingernails were clean, you know? Yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So in the end, I had him marry her.
People, I think, mistakenly thought it was an ethnic strip.
See, I wasn't zeroing in on any of the political factions of the Latinos or anything. I was just doing my comic strip.
Right.
But in doing so, I was imparting certain information, Gordo being a tourist guide, that the American public became interested in the country. I had many letters from people saying that they went to Mexico because of this strip.
Wow.
For the first time.
Yeah.
And what has happened is that Gordo, through these years, became kind of an ambassador. Oh, he didn't know it, I didn't know it, but people out there reading it, teachers and diplomats and whatnot, were realizing that this was a form of some kind of relationship between the two countries. So Gordo became an accidental ambassador.
I bet he did, yeah.
And that's the title of the book.
I want to show Gus some of the influences I don't know if he's had. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gilbert and Jaime Hernandez, the Hernandez brothers. They've done this comic strip alternative in a comic book for years called Love and Rockets. They admitted that they were influenced by you.
No kidding.
Now here's someone I wanted to expose you to. You probably heard the name R. Crumb, right?
Oh my gosh,
You have it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What do you know about Crumb?
Well, I saw him come up in San Francisco.
I think you'd love it because you have that kind of cosmic aspect.
I have seen his stuff quite often.
Yeah.
I don't frequent comic book stores, so I'm not up on the latest thing.
Well, you'll have a great time reading this.
Good.
Here. And this guy is probably the biggest phenomenon that's happening now. His name is Chris Ware, and he does this comic called Jimmy Corrigan, the Smartest Kid on Earth. And he's breaking all the rules of the comic book medium.
No kidding.
It's so deceptively simple, and yet...
Yeah, but he puts it across. Wonderful.
It's timeless, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And it's distributed mostly in comic book stores or bookstores.
You have to go into mostly alternative stores because this is more intellectual stuff, and it's just not really appreciated.
General public. Yeah. Now, what do they charge for a book like this?
Let's see. I think it's about price being in the United States and the territories where one finds big dreams, ugly buildings, and no health care.
And he throws that away in there.
Yeah, it's a little throwaway.
Yeah.
Right. It's. This is someone I hope that you've had some interaction with. Have you ever heard of Xavier Kugo?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I knew that he used to love to do caricatures.
I just got this at the convention. Someone knew I was a fan of his.
Mm-hmm.
I saw an old movie. Maybe you know this movie, Gus. It's called You Were Never Lovelier, 1940. And it's got Adolphe Menjou in it. And it shows the big band leader, Xavier Cugat, who was drawing a caricature of Adolphe Menjou.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. I used to go to all those movies.
Rumba is my life.
Yeah, oh sure, I knew him.
Did you ever meet him at all?
No,
or?
never met him.
Yeah. I wanted to get some of your recollections of some of your contemporaries and your peers. Let's start off with Charles Schulz. What were you close with him, or?
We were. When he first came here, we got together, and he was a very shy, quiet fellow.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, he was a genius. He was one of a kind. What he did was so personal. It was a one-man show all the time. Always had been. He would call up now and then. One time he called a few years later and said, "Do you ever have one of those days when you can't think of anything funny to do?" And I said, "That's every day with me, Sparky." And then we got busy, both of us, and we didn't see each other for a while. But he would come then once a year to the Crosby Pro-Am golf tournament. And if he'd had a bad round of golf at the tournament, he wasn't fit company because he was so unhappy that he didn't make the cut. There was no fun having dinner that night.
He took it seriously.
Oh, very, yes. Golf is not to be fooled with.
Yeah.
And Hank Ketchum, of course, has been here all these years.
Dennis the Menace.
Dennis the Menace.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Zippy the Pinhead.
Yeah.
That started here.
Yeah. No, the comic strip is a great medium for storytelling. If you look at comic pages today, they're just a bunch of heads telling jokes.
Right.
This has been the influence of television, I'm sure.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And it hasn't attracted the artists that it used to. Some of the art in comic strips today is very, very prehistoric, you know.
Yeah. You don't see a lot of real art anymore.
Well, I think real artists aren't attracted to it anymore. It's a dying medium, really. I don't know what the future of newspaper comic strips are.
Plus, it's a disposable art, isn't it? Isn't it? What was it? Was it Charles Schulz who said people average about 7 seconds on a comic strip?
Exactly. Yeah. What took me an hour to draw in ink takes somebody maybe 30 seconds to read.
Yeah.
But like I say, I tried to use it all in a visual and humorous context, and still sneak in a little message.
The message, I think, was as benign as we're all on this planet together.
Exactly.
We're all together.
Yeah. You got it.
Yeah, that's right. I got the key to Gordo there.
You were one reader who knew what you were doing.
Wow.
You know, in the world of cartooning and sequential storytelling, Gus Arriola was a giant, a towering figure amongst his peers. Underappreciated by most, but I think the annals of time will prove those of us who appreciated him right. I feel privileged and honored to have known him in the last few years of his life. Saludos, Gustavo, mi amigo.